YouTube, welcome back to some more card evaluation. Once again, joined by...
Hey guys, my name is Ali Straza. I've been a TCG gamer a TCG streamer for over 8 years now, but only really playing card games for about 9. I was honestly a late bloomer to the game, but made it into this whole thing, I suppose.
What kind of stuff have you been up to and what you've been doing over the course of your streaming career?
Yeah, so primarily Hearthstone over the course of these 8 years, but recently my big obsession is Parallel. It's a brand new science fiction based card game that I've been casting tournaments for and streaming and making content, and that's where most of my energy is going right now.
And tell us a little bit about your recent, or I guess complete Yu-Gi-Oh experience, which is recent, I suppose. How's that been for you, and have you picked up or noticed anything, and what's your proficiency level at these days?
Yes, so I just for the first time learned Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel live in front of my Twitch chat about a month or so ago, and I had fun with it, let me tell you, but it was difficult. I'll say that. And I would say that my proficiency level, I feel like I used all this brain power channeled into that stream and did okay. But I can't say that my proficiency is out the wazoo at this point. So don't expect greatness, I guess is what I'm saying for this little game that we're about to play.
Well, let's put it to the test, because what I have for you is pairs of cards. And I want you to read out and tell us your thought process when checking out these cards, because your job is to pick the best one of the pair. Now, obviously, there's going to be niche scenarios where the worst of the cards will be better than the other. That's always the case in any card game. You will probably find a situation where that is true. But for those who are familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh, when you see two cards, you will probably be fairly kind of already aware of which one is kind of the better one. So it's Ali's job here to try and figure out which one that would be. In pretty much most scenarios, that it would make it the objectively best one. Does that sound easy enough?
Yes.
All right. I guess we'll jump straight in. Here is your first card.
Okay. All right, so we've got Lightning Vortex. It's a spell card. It says, discard one card, destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. I mean, how could that be bad? All right, and then...
Simple enough.
Dark Hole. Oh, I played with Dark Hole when during my stream. Is destroy all monsters on the field. I mean...
Easy enough. So one here is mostly better than the other. And Yu-Gi-Oh players will definitely be aware, because one of these has been on the ban list for quite a significant portion of time. So which one is it, I suppose? Walk us through your thought process. How are you looking at these cards in terms of their viability and strengths and weaknesses?
Okay, so if it was on the ban list, that means that I wouldn't have been playing it in Master Duel, correct? Right? Because if it's banned, I wouldn't be able to play it.
It was, but it's been back now recently.
I feel like you're
recently.
tricking me there. Okay. Well,
I'm not lying. I'm not lying. I will not make things up, I promise.
Okay, well, my rationale was, I played with Dark Hole a month ago, so then if the other one has to be the banned card, therefore it's the better one. But I will try and... Okay, let's now analyze the cards themselves first before going too deep. Okay, I think discarding one card, not that big of a deal. If it means that I get to destroy my opponent's face-up monsters. My limited understanding is I don't know how often of the time monsters are face-up versus face-down. So to me, this seems like a really good card. But maybe... it just the face-up condition isn't good enough, so that's my thought process. And then Dark Hole is just like your classic, kill spell in any card game, which also is, your own stuff. So Dark Hole seems like a good card to me because, a Twisting Nether and a Hearthstone was a fine card. So
which one would you rather want to play? The cogs are spinning.
The cogs are spinning. I'm thinking.
Tell us what you're thinking.
I'm thinking that I'm thinking that like Dark Hole is just your classic kill spell, right? Like your big board wipe. How could that be bad? I don't think that is bad, but is it better than like a targeted thing for enemies? I think Lightning Vortex therefore has to be a better card, just like all around. I don't think discarding a card is that big of a deal, and if you get to keep your monsters on the board and take away your opponent's stuff, I think I'm going to say final answer, Lightning Vortex is probably a generally better card than Dark Hole.
This is really interesting, because I thought we were starting off easy here. Okay, well, you're locked in. But in actuality, Dark Hole is the better card than Lightning Vortex.
Darn, okay. Well, I am disappointed in myself. I feel like I had decent logic, but I just came to like I said, I think it's more a matter of like how often of the time face up, monsters are happening. Like to me, being able to keep your stuff on the board sounds like a good idea, but yeah.
So that's like completely correct in the way you're approaching it, because you're looking at it very much in terms of like the tempo and the card advantage. But I think with a little bit of the experience I would have hoped you've had by now, actually, you might have noticed that a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh gets played on turn 1. And so waiting for your opponent to like set, and then like maybe you'll be in a disadvantageous position where you don't have monsters, then you can Dark Hole. The reality is, like, if you're playing Dark Hole in your deck, the likelihood is that it's because you're going second. And so you won't have any of your own monsters anyway. Plus, you aren't discarding a card. Now, it's kind of interesting that you actually seem to kind of just totally, what's the word? Not ignore, but you just kind of undervalued the cost of discarding a card.
Yeah.
With how fast Yu-Gi-Oh is discarding a card, if you're discarding a card for a card effect, the card that you're discarding has to have a very, very good graveyard effect, or the card has to be super, super powerful to be worth losing one card for card advantage, especially when you're only really getting 2 or 3 turns in modern Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. Like in a vacuum based on other games, I would have thought, the tempo is worth it to get rid of one card. But I suppose in Yu-Gi-Oh, like you're saying, that you can just play your entire hand and games are over within 3 turns. So you're right. The cost of discarding something is probably far more significant in Yu-Gi-Oh. So, okay. All right. Makes sense.
All right. Let's go to the next group here.
Okay. All right. Well, we got Volcanic Queen. Absolutely love this card. A Pyro Effect. Okay. This card cannot be normal summoned or set. This card can only be special summoned from your hand to your opponent's side of the field by attributing one monster your opponent controls. If you special summon this card, you cannot normal summon or set this turn. Once per turn, you can send one other card you control to the graveyard to inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. During your end phase, either tribute one other monster or take 1,000 damage. I'm gonna need to read that again. But we got attack 2,500 and defense 1,200.
Do you want me to try and just kind of TLDR it for you?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so the first section is basically you don't get to normal summon or set that turn, but you special summon it to your opponent's side of the field by tributing a monster they control for a cost. So if they have like anything on the field, any monster, you just special summon this to you give them Volcanic Queen, and their monster gets tributed into the graveyard. The second portion of this effect is going to be usable by your opponent because it's now on their side of the field rather than yours. So your opponent will then be able to send one other card they control to the grave to inflict 1,000 to you. And then during the end phase, they have to tribute one other monster or they take 1,000 more damage.
Okay, so yeah, the TLDR is that if this is on their side of the board, it's going to keep pinging them for 1,000 damage unless they're, sending stuff to the graveyard. You. Oh, it's pinging me. Then why the heck would I want to give them this card? Why would I want to give them something where...
Well, let's read the next card, see maybe if it'll put some stuff into context.
Okay. Gameciel? Gameciel, the sea turtle kaiju. Okay. It's an aqua effect. You can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field in an attack position by attributing one monster they control. If your opponent controls a
So I'm just gonna stop you right there because just to save time and just to basically not have you go too far off track here, the entire rest of this card effect is irrelevant. So
Okay.
it's just that first sentence that you actually really need to focus on.
Okay. You can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field in attack position by tributing one monster they control.
Very similar to Volcanic Queen in that you just give them Gameciel the Sea Turtle.
And refresh me one more time on tributing, like it's just sacrificing, essentially.
Yeah, so tributing is weird because there's like multiple types of tributes. There's like tributing just your normal tribute summon, which is to summon a level 5 or 6 or higher monster. And then there's tributing for ritual summons. But in this case specifically, what tribute means is essentially you just instantly sacrifice an opponent's monster, and then they get control of one of these cards from your hand.
Okay, so the general idea is you're taking out something more powerful and giving them this, which is theoretically less powerful than the thing that you tributed.
I would say that's the gist.
That's the gist. Okay. So that if I stop reading after that first sentence, that seems fairly basic. It's just kill spell, kind of, sort of, but you're giving them... But it says in the attack position. Okay, 2200. And then to go back to Volcanic Queen...
I will say, somewhat similarly to Gameciel, the second effect is not as relevant. Gameciel's second effect is basically completely irrelevant. Volcanic Queen's second effect is kind of irrelevant, but not irrelevant enough that I want you to ignore it.
Yeah.
Because it has its own effect where now you've given the Volcanic Queen, so now you have to read this second effect pretending that you are your opponent. So your opponent can send cards they control to then ping you for 1,000, and then during the end phase, they have to tribute another monster in order to keep Volcanic Queen on the field, or they will take 1,000 damage themselves. But I want you to kind of just also think about the restriction. The last sentence of the first effect. Just make sure you keep that one in mind.
Yeah. If you special summon this card, you cannot normal summon or set this turn.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
that seems fairly restrictive. Volcanic Queen seems fairly restrictive and also just sort of like, I don't know, a liability. Like you're giving your opponent the option to ping you for 1,000. I mean, granted but you're giving them more agency in choosing to do damage to you, and they can also choose to not do that. I know that the bottom, I am focusing on the bottom half, so that's probably not the right thing to do here. But if you're bringing attention to that last sentence, I feel like that is restricted. Like you can't normal summon or set this turn. So I feel like the game gameciel is a little bit. Yeah, sorry. Is a little bit more basic, but I will say I'm focusing a little bit on the stats too. And actually, no, probably irrelevant. Okay, I'm gonna say.
Well, what I will say is, if you give your opponent Volcanic Queen, you can give it to them in defense mode, and you can see that 1200 defense is significantly weaker than 2200 attack on the Gameciel, just if you do want to keep the stats in mind.
Okay.
I think you hit the nail on the head by saying primarily the goal and objective of these is that they are sort of instant cost removal.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna say, and you could be priming me for this answer, like maybe you're trying to throw me a bone here, or you're throwing me in the wrong direction. I'm not sure. Last time you definitely gaslit me a few times. I think that Volcanic Queen is a worse card than...
And that's primarily down to what
reason? I think that's primarily down to if you special summon this card, you cannot normal summon or set this turn. But maybe, like I said, limited understanding of Yu-Gi-Oh! Here, maybe normal summoning is not that important, but I would say that it seems restrictive, so maybe Volcanic Queen is the worst card here. Okay, final answer.
All right, yeah, you are perfectly correct. The restriction on Volcanic Queen which is essentially, I mean, you didn't even really notice it because it's not even that obvious and it isn't even really that important. The trade-off is that you don't get to normal summon that turn, but you get to give them a weaker monster because you get to give them a 1200 defense Volcanic Queen. So the idea is that you tribute one of their guys, and then the Volcanic Queen is relatively easy to attack over because it's only 12 defense compared to the Kaiju's 22 attack. So that's really the trade-off there. And sacrificing your normal summon for that, really not worth it, and for the most part, any kind of small spot removal that involves tributing for cost, Kaijus are usually the go-to monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! For that type of reason. And so yeah, Gameciel completely, without a doubt, the better card because it has essentially no restriction.
Okay. All right. Phew.
Well done. This one should be interesting.
Okay, well, just based on the art alone of Dino Wrestler Pankratops. Okay. As a dinosaur, if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Dino Wrestler Panko, homie, once per turn this way. Okay. And then there's the quick effect. You contribute one Dino Wrestler monster, then target one card your opponent controls, destroy it. You can only use this effect of Dino Wrestler Pankratops once per turn. Okay. Quick effect, is that, remind me, is that like an instant speed type of thing? Or you can...
Yep, exactly. You can use it, like, kind of, like, enchain to something on your opponent's turn. Yeah, that's essentially a quick effect.
So, essentially, Dinosaur Man here, you can special summon him, and then you have the option of the quick effect, which you can sacrifice him to destroy a monster.
Any card
that
your opponent controls.
Yeah, yes. Ooh, any card.
Not just monsters, any card, yeah.
Ooh, that's pretty spicy. Okay. But there is the condition that if the opponent is controlling more, you can special summon him. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Well, that seems kind of decent in my opinion. Like it's
good card.
It seems decent. Like you're kind of behind, right, in order to special summon him. But then if you do, well, actually, I don't know. Does that really feel that great? You're playing
let's
from
read the second one to maybe try to get some context for it.
We've got Alpha, the Master of Beasts. Okay, Beast cannot be normal summoned or set. Must first be special summoned from your hand while the total attack of all monsters your opponent controls is more than that of monsters you control. You can target any number of beast warrior, and or winged beast monsters you control, return them to the hand, then return face-up monsters your opponent controls to the hand, equal to the number of cards you return to the hand. Jesus, this is so wordy. Also, for the rest of this turn, okay. Alpha, the Master of Beasts you control, cannot attack directly. You can only use this effect once per turn. Good lord. Okay.
All right, so let me just try and give you the TLDR to help explain it, because it is a hugely wordy card.
Yeah.
So basically, it's similar to Pankratops in the summoning condition, except that your opponent needs more bodies for Pankratops. Your opponent needs more attack points and stats on the field for Alpha. And then once it's on the field, you can target any number of beast warrior, wing beast. We call them tri-types in Yu-Gi-Oh! Essentially, you can return it to the hand, and then that will return a monster your opponent controls to the hand. Yeah, and then if the stats on the field are still higher, you can then resummon him.
Okay, so my analysis of both of these cards are like trade cards, you know? Like, I don't know how to explain that, but it's like, I feel like you're sort of just both resetting you and your opponent in similar ways. Like with the Alpha, you're sapping creatures, essentially, bouncing them. And then I guess the Dino Wrestler, you're like sacrificing for a sacrifice type of thing. So I can see how they're comparable.
Let's just quickly take one at a time again. So run through your thought process on, let's start with Pankratops. How do you look at this? What are the positives and negatives?
Yeah, I think with the Dino Wrestler here, I'm not that impressed, but I might just not be impressed with both of them. I think that, again, you're playing from behind here, and you're summoning it basically just to probably use the sacrifice. I mean, and then you can only use the quick effect once per turn. I mean, I guess there's value in just being able to special summon it. You don't have to use the quick effect destroy. I don't really like that. Doesn't feel that great. Like I'm getting to, well, hold on. Let me think about this. If you can just play all cards in Yu-Gi-Oh, like boom, 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 in a turn, you're basically and you're playing from behind. This is essentially just a kill spell. I suppose it's okay. And then with Alpha, I don't really know if I like the idea of just bouncing things back to the hand. Like maybe there's something really sketchy on my opponent's board, and our battle cry is a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like the summoning.
There's plenty of on-summon effects.
Yeah, there's plenty of on-summon effects. So allowing my opponent to potentially get more, good on-summon effects, like we're essentially, just trading back and forth. I don't know how much I like the Alpha here.
Can you tell me what you mean by that? Like, why would your opponent get more on-summon effects with Alpha? Oh, for like the following turn because you're bouncing them to the hand.
The logic is like they have good monsters with on-summon effects, and if I'm using Alpha's ability here, I'm just bouncing them back to the hand. And so,
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know how much I love the idea of that. And I think also another thing here is I don't know how often of the time, your opponent has more monsters versus more attack power. Like that I don't have a great gauge on. So
You are seeing what the side-by-side comparison and differences between each of them is,
definitely.
At least, right? Like,
I think traditionally, like when I'm using a bounce effect, like a sap in Hearthstone, I feel like it's usually really effective when I'm like killing them or I'm gaining so much tempo from the bounce that like allowing them to replay their card is worth it, right? And
well, similarly in Yu-Gi-Oh, maybe you're bouncing something that isn't as simple as just summon it next turn, right? I just want to clarify, because again, I'm not trying to like get too involved this time around, because people were a little bit accusatory of gaslighting you. So I'm just trying to stay a little bit more neutral this time around. But I just want to clarify, you do know how the extra deck works, right? Mostly.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm shaky. It was localized to that one stream, so I am. Yes, okay. There are certain.
Let me give you a hypothetical example. If you use Alpha to return an extra deck monster, it just goes back into the extra deck face down, and the materials that were used to summon it either go to the graveyard or they were already in the graveyards in the first place. So they would essentially have to try and summon that powerful synchro monster again. Just as to give you a little bit of context as to what like returning to hand can potentially also mean, other than just literally going to the physical hand.
Yeah. Okay. I think in that context, then I think my Hearthstone brain is like, oh, I bounce a minion. I'm presuming I could just play it again. And I think that is actually leading me towards, if there are all these conditions at which things need to be summoned, then Alpha is probably the better card here, I think. Yeah, because the dinosaur just doesn't really feel that amazing to me, and I was thinking that maybe they're kind of on par with each other, but if one is supposed to be glaringly better than the other, then I'm going to say the Master of Beasts is better. Final answer.
Okay. That's interesting. So you're kind of focusing on the fact that they won't be able to essentially bring back the guy that you're bouncing because the summoning condition will be too hard, that type of thing.
Yes.
All right. So the correct answer is, let's just look at them side by side. So both of them are fairly simple to summon as going second cards. That is, yeah, you are right. That's what they're designed for. You want to go second with them. And so they are essentially there as some type of pseudo removal. The advantage of Pankratops is that it can only be... the disadvantage is that it can only be special summoned once per turn. You didn't actually seem to notice that Alpha can be special summoned, return it to the hand, bounce a card, special summon it again. That's something you didn't actually pay attention to. So that's an advantage for Alpha in terms of the summoning conditions. Now, in terms of the actual meaningful effect here, Pankratops destroys any card your opponent controls quick effect. Alpha bounces cards on your turn as an ignition effect, as in you have to have the agency to use it yourself.
Ooh,
Something you didn't...
yeah.
One of the best, and I guess I'll give you the answer now. Absolutely, unfortunately, Pankratops is the better card here.
No!
And the biggest reason for that is that Pankratops is pretty big. It's not as big as Alpha, but it's 2,600.
Okay.
What you could typically use this for is you summon Pankratops going second, attack something, which doesn't activate any effects, it doesn't start any chains, you just summon Pankratops, go to the battle phase, attack, for example, an Apollousa or a Masquerena, and then when that's been destroyed, activate the effect, try and target to destroy Baron de Fleur, a card that was recently banned, but that's essentially you're trading 2 for 1. That's the best part of Pankratops. Now, Alpha can kind of similarly also do the same thing, but because of the fact that it's just a quick effect, it is so valuable because you're able to use this in chain and in response to something. If you summon Alpha and your opponent has something to immediately deal with it, well, then your Alpha's gone, whereas the Pankratops can easily chain and then deal with a different card on the field, essentially 2 for 1-ing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think I did not pay attention enough to the attack, like I can make use of them. In my mind, I was just kind of summoning him and then almost immediately sacrificing him, which just didn't feel that great. So, but I will say that I was definitely leaning toward Pankratops prior to your discussion about like the side other deck, you know, the summoning. So I personally feel debated in this particular round. Okay, I was thinking Pankratops until that, but it's fine. I will take the L on this round.
This is the easiest cop out. Just blame Farfa for going in the wrong direction. I get it.
It's fine.
But yeah, admittedly, the removal aspect of Alpha is technically more powerful because it's non-targeting removal. The problem is, like, can you actually get that off? Which is why the consistency of being a quick effect is just better on Pankratops' end. All right, so what's your score? 1 and 2, right?
Yeah. Oh, worse than last time. I think I'm overthinking things now. I had like a little bit of experience and I've lost my beginner's luck. Sad.
I'm going to give you these 2 Link 4 extra deck boss monsters. They're very wordy, but if we score 2 and 2, we'll have to go to a tiebreaker. But yeah, I don't want to keep too much of your time. But yeah, these are your final 2, or your pair here. Go ahead. Okay,
we got Accesscode Talker. Let's see, it's a link, and don't know what that means, an effect. Okay, 2+, that's small. 2 effect monsters. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's effect activations. If this card is link summoned, you can target 1 link monster that was used as material for its link summon. This card gains attack equal to that monster's link rating times 1,000. You can banish 1 link monster from your field or graveyard. Destroy 1 card your opponent controls. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot banish monsters with that same attribute to activate this effect of Accesscode Talker. All right, give me the TLDR on that one.
Do you remember how to link summon?
No, like I mean maybe, but just remind me.
Okay, so the most important thing about a link monster is the rating, which is on the bottom right corner there. So you see the attack is 23, and then it says link 4. What that means is that it needs 4 materials worth of monsters. And in the first line, it says Cyberburst Link Effect, and then it says 2+ effect monsters. So what you can do is you could use 4 monsters to summon Accesscode Talker, or you can use a monster and then a link 3 monster. 3 + 1 = 4. That's how you perform that link summon, which is why it says 2 effect monsters. 2 effect monsters isn't so much a summoning condition, it's more of a restriction in some ways, really, for the typical way to look at this, because rather than just being able to use a link 4 to immediately send and summon a link 4, which there is a monster that does that, but that's a different subject. What it means is that you need to use at least 2 effect monsters. So you can use a monster and another monster and a link 2 monster, so that's 1 + 1, link 2 is +2, that's 4. Or you can summon this with a link 1 and a link 3, that's 1 + 3, or you can just summon it with just 4 monsters, that's 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 4. So that's what the summoning condition is. So similar to how the next monster works. That's how a summoning condition is. Now, the actual effect. So basically what this means is your opponent can activate cards effects in response to this effect activation. So your opponent, the following effects, the next chapter in this book, your opponent won't be able to respond to these. So if this is link summoned, target a link monster that was used as material for its link summon, it gains attack. So let's say, for example, you use the link 3 and 1 monster to summon this. What that means is that you're going to get 3 multiplied by 1,000 for its attack points. So it's going to go up to 5,300 attack points. If you used a link 4 monster in 3 bodies, then that's going to be 6,300. If you use the link 2 and 1 monster, that's going to give it 4,300 attack. Typically, most of the time you're summoning this, it's going to be 53 or 4,300 attack. Just as an easy cheat sheet reference for yourself. Now, so the second effect, you see the attribute in the top right? You remember how attributes work?
Kind of.
Yeah, so Accesscode is a dark monster. There's 6 total in the game. There's wind, water, fire, earth, light, dark. You can banish a link monster from your field or graveyard, so one of the materials used to summon him, as an example. You can banish it from your graveyard. Let's say you banish a dark link monster from your graveyard. You can destroy a card your opponent controls. Then you can banish a wind link monster from your graveyard. You can destroy another card, etc., etc., depending on how many attributes you have. If you're playing an all dark deck, basically you're only going to get 1 pop, as an example. And in all of the effects I just described, your opponent won't be able to activate cards in response to it on summon or when you're trying to destroy cards. However, it's not a quick effect, which is the important thing. So if there is a small window in between where they can respond. That's Accesscode Talker. Any questions?
Not yet. I think a big thing for me is not understanding how easy it is to get the summon off, like linking. I mean, I would presume you're not playing this card in a deck that isn't capable of getting it off, though. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't worry too much about the summoning condition between these 2 monsters, because they have the same summoning condition. Borrelsword Dragon is also a link 4 monster. Okay, got it.
You can go ahead and read that. So in terms of ease of summoning, generally they're going to be similar.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one, and then I will digest them. So we've got borrelsword dragon. 3+ effect monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target 1 attack position monster, change it to defense position. Also, this card can make a second attack during each battle phase this turn. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effects activation. Once per turn, when this card declares an attack on a face-up monster, you can activate this effect. Until the end of this turn, this card gains attack equal to half the monster's current attack. And if it does, this monster's current attack is halved.
Okay, so let me TLDR it again. So same summoning conditions as Accesscode Talker. It's a link 4. However, it says 3+ effect monsters rather than 2. I will give you the cheat sheet summary of this. That means Borrelsword is a little more restrictive in its summoning because it requires at least 3 materials. So you won't be able to summon Borrelsword Dragon with a link 3 and 1 monster, 3+1 making link 4, in the same way that Accesscode can be summoned. So the first effect can't be destroyed by battle. That's just a nice little summoning, continuous effect on the card. Second effect. Quick effect, you can change the attack position of a monster in the field to defense. So you can turn one of your opponent's monsters from attack to defense. They can't respond to this, and it gets a second attack during the battle phase for that turn. The second effect. So when it declares an attack and it attacks something, it steals some attack, basically. So let's say you have a 3,000 monster, I have a 3,000 monster with Borrelsword. I attack your monster with Borrelsword. Your monster goes to 15, I gain that 15. My monster is now 45, yours is 15, I deal 3,000 damage. Is essentially how this works. So that's like the main idea behind Borrelsword.
Okay, my analysis of the 2 is that Borrelsword's effects overall seem more powerful. I think that any quick effects in the game are probably really strong. Just like instant speed spells, in Magic would be. So I'm valuing that fairly high. And just being able to change the position, I think, is significant. It seems like, one of the things of Accesscode is that, it gets to gain, it has the option to gain more attack, but, so does borrelsword. And, if it's a 5,000 or 5,300, I feel like that's kind of negligible. So I think that at first glance, I'm more impressed with borrelsword. I think that, the +3 is tripping me up a little bit, like, because that was, my focus initially just reading the access code is like, how difficult is it to get these cards going? And so if borrelsword is slightly more difficult to summon, it would make sense to me that the abilities would be better overall. So I think my intuition is probably correct in that borrelsword is more impactful, therefore a little bit more difficult to cast.
Okay.
But
all right, tell us a little bit about Accesscode. What's your running thoughts as you read Accesscode?
Okay, so Accesscode Talker actually has a kill spell attached to it, which borrelsword does not, correct?
By kill, I assume you mean remove, right?
Yeah, remove. Yeah, remove it. So borrelsword allows you to change the position, okay? But it does not allow you to actually just flat out kill a monster, which now that I'm thinking about it, that seems fairly significant. So Accesscode Talker is a little bit easier to cast. Also has the ability to gain attack and take out a monster. And
any card.
Any card. Okay, that's significant as well. And then borrelsword is more difficult to cast. Has a quick effect, but it's only changing it to the defense position. It does get to make a second attack during the battle phase, though, which if it... I wonder how much to value that. I mean, if it's chonky and it can get a second attack, that might be significant. And also your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this, but that's true for both of them. Ooh, but also taking away your opponent's power, being attacking it, having it. Oh my god, I don't know. This one's really got me tripped up. I like them both.
Link summoning enjoyer, I see.
Yeah, maybe I'd be a linker. That's not a thing. Okay.
Linker.
This is actually really difficult for me because, like I said, quick effect, only changing to defense position, but also making the units or the monsters weaker. Like, but the Wind Fury, man, like being able to attack twice, like that could be significant.
It's really funny, actually. That was probably the easiest way to describe this. I should know my Hearthstone terminology, but it is Wind Fury.
It's just Wind Fury, which Wind Fury is like a scary thing, especially if you're gaining attack. Now, refresh my memory. If you're changing something to the defense position, though, are they blocking? Can they block? Like, if you chose to...
Remember, every Yu-Gi-Oh monster in the game is a taunt.
Yeah. Okay.
That's basically how the mechanics work.
Yeah, so essentially you can make something defense position and then attack it down and then attack it again with the Wind Fury. And then Accesscode is being able to actually destroy something. Oh my god, this is hard. And I don't want this to be wrong because I'll get a failing grade here. You can only use the Accesscode Talker's banish once.
Once per attribute, remember.
Once per attribute. Okay, yeah. I also don't know how many attributes you normally put into a deck.
Depends on the deck, sometimes two. Usually, like, around that number. Some decks can just get full value and destroy 5-6 cards, potentially. Not that common, but...
I'm reading them one more time. I'm taking this very seriously, if you can't tell. Okay, right now, the things I'm torn between are just the fact that you can take a monster out, okay, with access code. But then the quick effect of borrelsword is being able to, like, at instant speed, dictate, like, the change of the position of potentially something very annoying, because you would be able to kill that monster with the access code, but not at instant speed. I think the fact that access code talker is easier to summon, would you agree, would you validate that it's easier to summon?
Well, objectively, without me giving you any spoilers, it is easier to summon because it only requires 2+ monsters, not 3+.
Exactly. So, question. If you're banishing things from your graveyard, like, can that be advantageous to you? Like, you know, if X card is banished, then do X. Like, is there, like, combos here that you can use access code talker with?
There are absolutely plenty of, like, combos you can do by banishing monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! But I will give you a little bit of a help and spoiler. I can't think of anything specifically utilizing access code talker. I'm not too sure if I can even think of any link monsters that trigger when banished. So, probably not much.
Oh, that swayed me. Okay. All right. I think the thing that is driving my decision here is just, like, valuing the quick effect, like, just being able to have that option. I guess I'm gonna go with borrelsword. Yeah, because I think the nature of it being slightly more difficult to cast means that the effect should be better. But I, as long as it's not ridiculously hard to get this thing going, then I would say that perhaps the combined, that this thing could be bigger and badder, a little bit scarier. Like, if he goes unanswered, the Wind Fury is terrifying. He's also got the, quick effect thing. Like, I guess, I guess this is my final answer. Did I pass, Farfa? Did I pass?
You're gonna go with borrelsword dragon is better than access code talker.
The way that you said that.
I just want to make sure we've got it, on tape here to clarify for the viewers.
Yes. Don't come for me in the comments, chat. Okay.
What I can tell here by your analysis is that you are seemingly fixating quite a lot on the idea that it is a quick effect to put something to defense mode, which is it is pretty strong. And you have also seemed to have kind of let Konami tell you this is a better card, because you seem to be using the logic that, well, if it's 3+ effect monsters, that means it's harder to summon, therefore it has to be better. Well, that's not how cards work, right? If something has a higher level or a higher attack, that doesn't necessarily make it a better card, does it? No,
it doesn't. I'm more specifically not like the effect, I guess. Yeah, theoretically, if something is harder to summon, then there should be more payoff, in the effect.
Yeah. Well, I will say that you are unfortunately incorrect. Access Code Talker is far ahead better than borrelsword dragon. And there is a portion of Access Code Talker's effect that you seemingly did not really pick up on or mention or elaborate on at all. Do you think you see what it is?
If this card is Link Summon, you can target one Link monster that was used as material for its Link Summon. This card gains attack. No, that's just the attack. You can banish...
All right, so I will tell you. So for both of Access Code Talker's On Summon effect and Ignition effect, your opponent cannot respond. That means that if you summon this, your opponent can bottomless it, they can torrential it, they can immediately use some quick effect on the summon, they have to use it on resolution, and then when you banish to destroy a card your opponent controls, they can't respond to you banishing. They have to immediately start flipping their traps or dropping hand traps immediately after the resolution of its summon, because your opponent can't respond to it. Now, while Borrelsword Dragon technically can get stronger and more powerful numerically, and it can maybe do more damage, and it will, and I will say Borrelsword does do more damage usually. Access Code Talker's utility that it provides by being able to destroy usually 2 cards. Most decks that link summon borrelsword will use some kind of like link 2 or 3 to be able to get to its body, and then you can pop 1 card. And then if you have another attribute of a link monster, you can pop 2. Generally between 1 and 2 pops. In the extreme case, some Cyberse decks can pop 5 or 6 cards with this access code. Although, to be fair, if your opponent has 5 or 6 cards that can't deal with access code talker, what the hell are those cards anyway? So that's kind of a little bit redundant. But the thing you didn't really focus on is that it can't be responded to.
See, I think the reason why I didn't focus on that is because both of them, that's true for both of them. Right?
But that's only true for borrelsword's switching to defense effect. Putting something to defense is a good effect, but it's not as good as a non-targeting destroy.
Yes.
No, not even close.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think I thought it was just the same. I thought that the condition was the same for the entirety of both cards. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to focus in on that, because if they both have that option, then like it's kind of neutral. So I think that's probably where the reasoning for me not focusing on it. But yeah.
So what I will say as well is I don't want you to feel too bad about this, because guess what? The Yu-Gi-Oh community, the average Yu-Gi-Oh player, did not even know this themselves when Accesscode Talker was released. When Accesscode Talker was released, people just still kept playing Borrelsword Dragon. So chronologically, Accesscode Talker is a little bit newer. People still kept playing Borrelsword because people thought Borrelsword was the better game shot. It does technically do more damage, but people absolutely undervalued just how powerful it is to destroy cards without your opponent responding. Accesscode Talker on release of its I know card prices don't really like mean too much to you, but on release, Accesscode Talker was like $20-$25. After a couple of events, people realized, wait a minute, this card is just absolutely significantly better than Borrelsword in almost every single way, because it's easier to summon, it removes cards and provides more utility, and it kind of usually does about the same kind of damage in the sort of region of like 5,000 to 6,000 per turn anyway. And it shot up to like about 90, almost 100 per copy.
Oh my
just
God.
to get your hands on an Accesscode Talker. So it took a while for even the Yu-Gi-Oh community to realize Accesscode Talker is better. And until today, almost every Yu-Gi-Oh deck that is around plays Accesscode Talker over Borrelsword Dragon.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. I'm not going to lie. But still slightly disappointed in myself here. I think I should have just focused on the fact that it is a kill. Like, you can actually kill a monster or banish a monster. Like, that's significant.
Any card, not just monster. That's why it's so good, and your opponent just can't respond. That's really what it comes down to. So
yeah. No, it makes sense. Well,
all right, Ali, unfortunately, you didn't do as well as last time, but I think your analysis was generally quite good. Your understanding of card text is definitely significantly improved, and I did absolutely use more difficult and intermediate cards and examples for you, specifically the last one, because, as I said, even Yu-Gi-Oh players themselves couldn't really figure out which one was better until long after its release, so don't feel too bad. Tell us a little bit more about where people can catch you and how we can find out more about your content, etc., etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my Twitch channel is twitch.tv/AliStraza. My YouTube channel is also AliStraza. Most of my parallel content is on a new channel, ALLI3. So you can look for it there if you like sci-fi and card games. That's what I'm focusing a lot of my time on. And then Twitter, AliStraza as well. That's when I, post my updates of what I'm doing. Instagram, AliStraza_, because someone has the main, AliStraza account. But I think that's about it. And I'm a little disappointed in myself. I think the first one, Dark Hole, should have gotten that, but I think I was thinking a little too hard. But I just want to say thanks for anyone that watched my YouTube video of my first time playing Master Duel. There was a lot of really nice and encouraging comments on that. So thank you for anyone that checked out that video and also this video. And hopefully I'll see you guys more in the future.
Thanks so much for joining me again. Appreciate your time. And thanks to you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe and hit the like button, etc. for more content in the future. And until next time, adios.
Bye.